what we've noticed commercially is that most of the established companies are failing in the EV side. They are selling and they're coming up with new models. But when you look at how much they invested, how big the plants were, how much capital they put at risk, and basically, what customers are doing and buying, it's not panning out. I don't think you're going to see us like others where we're going to be pounding our chest saying we have 27 electric models for all customers. No, that's not our strategy. Our main competition in the pure electric space is going to be BYD and Geely and Tesla. I mean, that's our competition. It's not General Motors. It's not going to be BMW or Volkswagen. Car companies haven't written software like this. Ever. They've never written software. So we're literally writing how the vehicle operates, the software to operate the vehicle for the first time ever. It's hard to scale battery plants. Like I have to tell you, building the plant is the easy part. But actually building cells in high quality at high scale is much harder than we thought, even though we've been building stuff for 120 years. It's a lot harder than we thought. We think basically that the car would be very difficult to make money on it. The F-150 Lightning was a complete pariah inside the company. Like most people were like, why are we doing that? That's a really stupid project. I watched the company kind of like literally try to kill the project.
In this video, Ford CEO and Elon Musk admirer Jim Farley has given a brutally honest interview on the Fully Charged podcast in which he admits there's zero chance Ford will ever catch up or compete with Tesla, so they're not even going to try. I'm not kidding. Farley also quite strongly insinuates that many other automotive companies will be going bankrupt this decade, and Ford intends on cleaning up some of their scraps and filling the void left by large automakers like Toyota. And in a moment of incredible candor, Farley also describes the utter clusterfuck that is software in Ford vehicles today, and how Ford are trying desperately to learn how to create software for cars, while at the same time pointing out that many of Ford's so-called competitors are so dumb they haven't even realized how important software is. In short, Jim Farley tells us things we already knew, but the fact that he's now saying them out loud in public as CEO of Ford really speaks volumes. I respect Jim Farley, and I really do hope that Ford can survive. Of all the legacy automotive manufacturers, I do think they have the best chance, but it's still just a chance. In the United States, Ford is Tesla's closest competitor, and they're so far behind they need a telescope to have a hope of seeing Tesla. Brutal honesty at its best. By the way, if you guys would like more content, check the links in the pinned comment to join Patreon and subscribe over on Twitter. Patreon, over 300 exclusive videos in the archive and still counting, plus plenty of exclusive content you'll find nowhere other than Twitter subscriptions.
I think what's a danger when you make a vehicle about its propulsion system is that by nature it becomes a commodity. And when it becomes a commodity and it competes on price and really it's only a rational purchase, you can make the argument that the adoption of the technology gets really risky, because there's only 20-30% of the market that wants a generic A to B car.
So as much as I respect Jim Farley, he's so far off the mark here. I understand where he's coming from, but bro, he's either saying this because he's the Ford CEO and he realizes they can't compete with Tesla, so he's trying to save face here, or he's just living in fucking la-la land. What Jim's getting at here is, well, considering only, let's say, 30% of consumers are rational and buy based on rational reasons, by the way, that's probably true. If your strategy as a business is just to make the most rational purchase possible, e.g. a product that's so good, so compelling, and such great value it will sell itself, you're missing out on the irrational buyers that make up about 70% of the market, which is what we're going to go for. Irrational buyers will pay more for less. This is literally what he's suggesting. Now, in fairness, he does have a bit of a point. You can manipulate people and potatoes into buying stuff that isn't great value. That's why advertising works. However, what Jim Farley is really admitting here is we can't compete with Tesla on price. They're going for the mass market. They're going to make such compelling, affordable vehicles. We cannot compete, so we'll have to differentiate ourselves somehow by offering intangible value as opposed to tangible. For example, how much you're paying versus what you're getting. Nah, that's not what we're going for. Instead, we're going to somehow fool people into buying our subpar products and paying more for them because we offer things other than great value. What else is Farley going to say? They can't compete with Tesla on price. As this interview continues, we'll find out that Ford's strategy appears to be milk the Ford brand for all it's worth, compete only in segments that Tesla won't be touching, and hope that they can somehow continue to sell vehicles to consumers who don't do the math and aren't interested in a great value product.
So I think this is really one of Tesla's most challenging moments. They got through Model 3 and Model Y commercialization in the plant and scaling production. The next big test turns out to be their heavy discounting to stimulate demand, which is a sugar high, and it continues to deteriorate the elasticity. Less and less people are signing up as you cut the price. And this is what Henry Ford found out with the Model T, that you commoditize your product when you're telling people, hey, the price is what really matters. And it's such a reductive product like the Model T, where you take content and, interfaces and all the things that make things interesting in cars, you take all that out
Right.
to reduce cost and weight and everything. That further commoditize the product. So
I think Jim has overdosed on copium right here. This is hilarious. Now, the point he's trying to make is Tesla's going to be removing features and functionality, and their cars aren't going to be a great experience because that's how they're going to drive their costs down. Hello? The features on Tesla vehicles have continued to improve. They've added features and functionality. They're getting better over time. At the same time that that's happening, the user experience is improving. Tesla's removing things from the manufacturing side to make the vehicles more affordable. Consumers don't notice the difference if there's a gigantic casting in the car or 350 different pieces with 600 trillion different welds and joints. But again, what else are you going to say in Farley's position? Tesla's going to drive their costs down so far. There's no fucking hope we can compete on costs. So let's frame this as if Tesla's removing features that customers really want from their vehicles, and that's how they're making them more affordable. Just imagine this was, say, 50 years ago, and Jim Farley was talking about the personal computer. And Tesla's strategy to make personal computers affordable for everyone is not really going to work out for them. Because if you make them more affordable and better, that's not how you win. Don't worry, folks. It'll get better from here, I promise.
I think we're basically where we were with the Model T in the late teens, when Henry has cut the price from $810 to about $500.
Right.
But he's commoditized the Model T, refused to put colors into it, tried to simplify it. You're kind of justifying, hey, if I cut the price enough, there'll be more farmers that will buy this and get rid of their horses.
So really awkward, but I have to do it. Jim, that's literally what happened, and that's why we don't use horses anymore, because the cost of the automobiles became compelling enough that people could buy them instead. I know he's trying his best to make a point here. It's hard to be super honest as an automotive CEO when you can't compete with Tesla and you know it. This is pretty absurd. He's making the opposite point of the point he's trying to make here. For driving the cost of vehicles down that far was what enabled adoption of cars. This is why our streets aren't currently piled up with horse shit, because people aren't using horses anymore. Because the value proposition of an affordable vehicle made so much more sense to consumers. We literally ended up eating the horses. The adoption of the automobile happened so rapidly after Henry Ford innovated and drove costs down. Poor guy's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
As we enter the second inning, for the last 2 years, we've been working on our second generation products. We're now working on third generation. And the second generation product turns out to be really more targeted. What we've noticed commercially is that most of the established companies are failing in the EV side. They are selling and they're coming up with new models. But when you look at how much they invested, how big the plants were, how much capital they put at risk, and basically, what customers are doing and buying, it's not panning out commercially.
This is true for a variety of reasons, and it's actually really important. Good on Jim for pointing this out. Ford aren't really an exception here. Why could this possibly be happening? Spoiler alert, there's this company called Tesla who have a 15-year head start on most legacy automotive manufacturers producing electric vehicles. They have an unassailable lead in terms of their costs. They have incredible discipline with their capital expenditures. They're so resourceful. They do far more than any other company with far less. It's super embarrassing, by the way. Check out the total amount of debt Tesla has ever raised in their lifetime as a company. Bit of homework for you. I'm not going to tell you the number. Versus how much money, let's say GM or Ford or pick your legacy automotive manufacturer, have committed to spending as they transition to EVs. And you'll go, hang on a minute, wait, what? They're going to spend X times more than Tesla did in their whole lifetime as a company just in the next few years, just to get to production a fraction of Tesla's EV production? What? There's just no chance legacy automotive manufacturers can compete. And Farley's right. They're not getting a return on their investment yet. Because despite the billions of dollars they're spending on plants and advertising and marketing and a bunch of other bullshit, they cannot produce the vehicles profitably at scale. They can't compete on price with Tesla. He is right. So what do? Well, as Farley points out, you just try to differentiate your product in some other way than being the best value, the most compelling. I don't know. What are they going to do? Like I said, rock in a hard place.
So, and the worst is kind of the premium players.
Right.
And we can get into that. But, you know, we decided in our second generation to do something very different than other companies. Our first 3-generation products were, you know, we electrified our most iconic products. So F-150, as you said,
Yeah.
Mustang, but we made it an SUV, and then Transit, the best-selling van in the world. And we didn't know what we didn't know. That was 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago. So we've learned a lot in the last 2 years. We've been working on re-aiming our capital and our investments in different areas than the first generation products. And we don't want to go where everyone else is. We want to electrify. What we've learned about electrification is it's actually not about propulsion system, although that's interesting. It's really about what you can do outside of the propulsion system and also the software. So because it's a digital product, and our first generation EVs were analog products. So we're going to electrify commercial, larger 3-row crossovers, pickup trucks, you know, high performance vehicles. We don't want to make commodity products. We want to participate in the part of the market where Ford knows the customer really well, and we can innovate on their behalf for things that they don't know they need.
Just in case you can't read between the lines here, this is a tacit admission from Farley that Ford doesn't want to make commodity products, aka they know they can't. They can't compete on costs. They cannot manufacture vehicles even close to as profitably as a company like Tesla. They've recognized this, so they're not even going to try. They've literally given up. It's interesting the way that Farley is describing Tesla vehicles as commodity products. That's the least generous way to describe them. What he's really saying is, on every metric that you can measure, Tesla's products are better, cheaper, superior, safer, you name it. We can't compete on that, so we're not going to try. By the way, this is actually the right strategy from Ford. Attempting to compete with Tesla is tantamount to admitting brain damage. Why bother? Doesn't make sense. You will never succeed, so don't try. Ford's got a great strategy here. Electrify their big brand names, milk the Ford reputation, F-150 Lightning, and also milk their commercial business. Ford has a great commercial business. They're electrifying vans. This is actually a really good play because Tesla's not competing in these categories. And I do think that there's something to say for Ford's brand. There'll be a lot of buyers who will never, ever touch anything other than a Ford. Sell vehicles to them. That's exactly what Ford are doing. So props to Jim Farley. This is the right strategy, although it's pretty hilarious the way he's attempting to paint this as a positive. Really, what he's saying is, we can't compete with Tesla. We're not going to try, but we do want to survive, so we're going to do whatever we need to.
For example, the F-150, the main reason why people are buying the F-150, more than half the customers are new to a full-size truck, is because it can power their house for 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't know that a mobile battery on a white work site was going to be that evocative as a reason to buy a vehicle. We thought it was going to be 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. We were wrong.
Yeah.
So the exportable power turns out to be really the main reason why people are excited about the Lightning, you know, and we guessed at that. I mean, it was like a feature we put on at the very end of the development of the vehicle. So,
spoiler alert, here's what actually happened inside Ford. Speculation alert, although if you have at least half a brain cell, you probably draw the same conclusion. Tesla announces the Cybertruck. They show off the features. Ford goes, onboard power, onboard air compressor. Wait, ours has a battery. We could do that as well. Next minute, they add that feature, and it turns out this is something that customers are interested in. And again, to Ford's credit, I mean, what else are they going to do? They're not going to be able to compete on price, features, functionality. They've got to think about, okay, what can we do to get those customers who typically would buy an F-150 to buy the electric version? Just add as many features as we can. Don't compete on price, but try to add some features that might appeal to these buyers. Good strategy to stay in business. Not a good strategy to dominate or win, but that's never going to happen. So again, credit where it's due. Ford are doing what they need to. They don't really have much choice.
I don't think you're going to see us like others where we're going to be pounding our chest saying we have 27 electric models for all customers. No, that's not our strategy.
Yeah.
Did he just take a low-key dump on Mary B.S. Barra and Government Motors? I'm pretty sure that's what just happened. If you guys haven't seen my video on the difference between a plan and a strategy, check it out. Search YouTube. You'll find it.
We've been watching this for years now play out. And I've always said that our main competition in the pure electric space is going to be BYD and Geely and Tesla. I mean, that's our competition. It's not General Motors. It's not going to be BMW or Volkswagen.
Shots fired. Not only is Jim right, but he said it out loud. GM ain't Ford's competition. Why would Jim say that? GM claim that they're producing a lot of electric vehicles, or they will in the future. They're a US-based automotive manufacturer. They compete in most of the same segments that Ford is in. Why would he say they're not Ford's competition? Oh, that's right, because he knows that they're fucked. Jim's right, by the way. In essence, he said our competition ain't big legacy automotive manufacturers. It's Chinese EV makers and Tesla. Not only is this right, but he said it out loud, so credit where it's due. Once again, this guy gets it.
And I mean, that's certainly one of the things that we've experienced. The legacy automotive European companies have struggled with, because they can make really good cars. They can do really good suspension and steering and body, all that stuff they can do really well. But it's the software that is always the problem. I mean, the early Volkswagen, the ID3 that a neighbor of mine has, all the problems were software. The car was perfect. There's nothing wrong mechanically with it. It was the software that messed up quite often, and the charging was a problem.
Accurate assessment here from Robert. It's not like we could have seen this coming, because remember, the experts told us that the competition was coming. As soon as they decided to come for Tesla, they would. And obviously, what Tesla makes is exactly the same as what an internal combustion engine manufacturer makes, and software doesn't matter, and therefore they're going to catch up as soon as they decide to, as we hear. Not that easy. Just imagine you bought a smartphone and the software sucked harder than a vacuum. And every time you plugged it into charge, it said, sorry, the charger's not working. No battery for you. It will be a terrible experience. The super embarrassing thing is it still hasn't become evident to many automotive manufacturers today how critical software is. They're going to realize, oh, hang on a minute. We need software engineers. Okay, let's hire some. They hire a bunch of C, D, and E grade software engineers and realize, oh, that's not going to cut it. Wait, does that mean we have to pay Google salaries, Apple salaries to our software engineers? Oh, we do. Okay, great. Well, let's do that then. And then they'll discover that most of these software engineers don't want a fucking job at government motors, because they're not going to deploy software in the real world that actually counts for shit. Good luck. The problem I think they'll discover is that most of the world's best software engineers on the list of companies they really want to work for, I don't think you're going to find too many legacy automotive manufacturers when there's companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Airbnb, Square, Stripe, Tesla. I could keep going on and on and on. Great software engineers typically want to work on great projects that are going to impact a lot of people, not on potato projects working for dinosaur companies that will soon be out of business.
If I explain to the listeners how crazy our software system is and why it's so difficult for legacy car companies to get software right, I'll do it very quickly.
Yeah.
So to save probably $500 a vehicle, or let's say 350 quid a vehicle.
Yeah.
We farmed out all the modules that control the vehicles to our suppliers, because we could bid them against each other. So Bosch would do the body control module, someone else would do the seat control module, someone else would do the engine control module.
Right.
And we'd have about 150 of these modules of semiconductors all through the car. The problem is the software are all written by 150 different companies, and they don't talk to each other.
Right.
So even though it says Ford on the front,
yeah,
I actually have to go to Bosch to get permission to change their seat control software.
Right.
So
Wow.
even if I had a high-speed modem in the vehicle and I had the ability to write their software, it's actually their IP. And I have 150, we call it the loose confederation of software providers, 150 completely different software programming languages. All the structure of the software is different. It's millions of code, and we can't even understand it all.
Were you listening? That is the clusterfuck of all clusterfucks. 150 different components, each with their own software from different suppliers. No chance of these things working together. They have their own firmware, their own software. Ford can't control any of this stuff. They're not vertically integrated. And I think Farley mentioned they outsource this stuff to save a few $100s per vehicle. Not a decision that's aged well. And it's important to understand this. Tesla vertically integrates to the hilt. They write their own software, their own firmware. This insight from Farley is also a window into other automotive manufacturers, especially legacy companies who've outsourced everything. And it's not going to end well. Of course, we're not going to hear any of the dim-witted Wall Street stock analysts who've been describing Tesla as just a car company or claiming the competition was coming admit that they were wrong. They fundamentally misunderstood how important, how critically important, how fundamental software was to a compelling electric vehicle, and the fact that a legacy automotive manufacturer didn't have any experience writing software and therefore good f***ing luck. But this is a key insight. Ford are a little bit further ahead than most other automotive companies in realizing, holy shit, we've got to bring this stuff in-house, otherwise we're out of business. Imagine 150 individual components, each from different suppliers. What's that saying again? Complexity appeals to stupid people. Now, I knew things were bad, but I didn't realize this bad. 150 separate components from different suppliers? Yikes. I don't envy Jim Farley and Ford.
That's why at Ford, we've decided in the second generation product to completely insource the electric architecture.
Right.
And to do that, you need to write all the software yourself. But just remember, car companies haven't written software like this.
Yeah.
Ever. They've never written software. So we're literally writing how the vehicle operates, the software to operate the vehicle for the first time ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brutal honesty here from Jim. And remember, these same comments apply to all legacy automotive manufacturers. They just won't say it out loud. I just cannot stop thinking about the morons who've repeatedly, over the last 10 plus years, claimed the competition was coming. The big boys will put Tesla out of business. The same dipshits who look at Tesla's valuation and then say, Tesla's valued more than the next X amount of car manufacturers combined. That doesn't make sense. The same dipshits who say things like Tesla is just a car company and Tesla doesn't have anything that Toyota doesn't already have. Idiots.
And that's the big, yeah, that's the big change that I always want to, and I've discussed this with numerous people in the automotive sector, and the general public just don't get that because it's just a car. We bought a car 10 years ago and my dad had a Ford when I was a kid and, it was just that way and they worked and that was fine and everybody understood how they worked. And now suddenly it's a different machine. I've always said this, and that's the big challenge for companies like Ford to,
you got to make that decision. Do you cut and do it all yourself?
Yeah.
Or you keep trying with these, modules in your supply chain.
Yeah.
And I watch way too many companies continue to try. I won't name the names because they're competitors, but it's shocking to me, how many people are sticking with very old electric architectures and software from other people, Confederacy. It will never work. And no matter how many software engineers they hire, your car's not going to work. You're going to have problems.
I'm sure one of the companies Jim didn't mention by name there definitely wasn't General Motors. By the way, notice how he said it will never work? Never work? Not it probably won't work. No, it will never work. He's right. There's a reason I relentlessly roast and rip on some of the leaders of many automotive manufacturers globally. They just don't get it. They're leading their companies off a cliff. They're dangerously incompetent.
So we've just decided to go student body left on that and insource it all. Over the last 80 years, we've been breaking that model apart because we could, save labor by having this part made in another country. Yeah. And so we could bring the cost down actually faster by reducing the vertical integration. Right. But when technology comes around like this big change, whether it's embedded electric architecture or these new EV components, you can't delegate that to supply chain. You have to, if you want to be different than everyone else and you want to be better, you have to go to silicon carbide inverters before other people. You have to design your motors more efficiently than other people. And socially, we have so many hourly workers. And the cars are simpler. So they're 30, 40% less labor content. So if we just turned all of our plants over to electric, we'd have to let go 30% of our people.
Brutal honesty again from Farley here. Now, let's talk about why this really matters. In case you guys don't know, there's this extremely corrupt organization known as the United Auto Workers Union. By the way, I'm not just throwing around random allegations about corruption. Do your homework. They have a history of corruption. And you see, there's a problem. This UAW, the eggplant that's been buried in the back of Joe Biden's throat for his entire presidency, that guy, union jobs. Hey, Joe, don't say the word Tesla. Okay, union. Hey, you did it, Mary, you led and it matters. That was all a result of the UAW bribing the Democratic Party over the last 30 years with political donations, aka bribes. Here's a problem. While the United Auto Workers Union claims to be working in the best interest of employees working at automotive companies, including Ford and General Motors, the truth is they work for for their own best interest. Most of the fees don't go toward their employees or the interests of their employees, but to the UAW itself. Here's the problem. If Ford were to say, we're going to lay off 30% of our employees now because we don't need them anymore, the UAW will have conniptions. Won't end well for Ford. So what happens? Ford, in essence, will be forced to retain useless employees they don't need. They're going to have to reskill them to do things they're not capable of doing, like trying to teach a world-class ballerina how to be a Michelin star chef. It's possible, could work out, but I wouldn't be betting on it. This is a huge obstacle for companies with unionized workers to transition to EVs. The irony here, of course, is the UAW, who are supposedly working for the best interests of their members, aka employees at GM, Ford, etc., are going to be one of the many reasons why legacy automotive companies end up going bankrupt and everyone loses their job. Companies like Ford and GM are going to be forced to retain employees they don't need, while they're spending tens of billions of dollars desperately trying to transition to EVs. How do you think that's going to work out? The UAW is like wearing a pair of concrete shoes and going for a swim in the ocean. Good luck.
Right.
And so vertical integration has another advantage is that we can actually give our team new jobs that are they're sustainable. That they will have a job for the next 50 years, making motors, inverters, gearboxes, things that we used to outsource. We never made axles or differentials for internal combustion engines, but we brought all that in-house because and the people that really understand the electric transition, they didn't understand that it created just as many problems, like the labor overhang, that they hadn't thought about.
Once again, Jim Farley's stuck between a rock and a hard place here. He can't shit down the UAW workers, but he needs to. So what does Ford do? Well, we'll just keep them and hope, which, by the way, hope is not a strategy, hope that they can somehow learn to do things that they currently can't do. Now, call me crazy, but typically a company, when looking for employees to do things, would hire employees who are already capable of doing the things they need them to do, as opposed to hiring employees who can't do the things they need them to do and then spending all the time, money and resources hoping that they can teach their own employees how to do the things they need them to do. I don't think this is going to end well for Ford. In fact, I think this is what's going to happen. I've kind of called this already. Ford have already started the steps to spin out their EV business, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Ford, traditional Ford, internal combustion engine Ford, will just end up going bankrupt, being weighed down by too many employees, crazy overhead, collapsing ICE sales, collapsing profits, and then negative profits. At the same time that that's happening, Jim and electric vehicles can abandon ship, so to speak, spin off Ford's electric vehicle business as its own entity, avoid some of the bad publicity, continue about their merry way.
We have been building the battery plants. It's hard to scale battery plants. Like I have to tell you, building the plant's the easy part, but actually building cells in high quality at high scale is much harder than we thought, even though we've been building stuff for 120 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than we thought.
That should probably be the title of today's video. It's a lot harder than we thought. I'm so shocked. I definitely didn't see this coming.
And then, goodness gracious, to go back and get into the supply chain, we now pretty much vertically integrate all the raw material purchases. So we're going to the mine and buying the raw materials and then arranging for the processing and all the way to our battery plants. And, that's all new. Like we've had to hire thousands of new people, mineral experts, processing experts, logistics experts.
So in a hypothetical scenario, just imagine being a company who needs to and has hired thousands of new people, yet at the same time hasn't been able to get rid of the thousands of old people that they no longer require. Not that this applies to Ford at all. I'm just saying, hypothetically, wouldn't that be a really awkward and difficult situation to navigate?
And I mean, is your long-term, I mean, just to clarify for me, because I think you did mention this earlier on, but is your long-term aim to build effectively a cheaper, smaller electric vehicals as well as upmarket ones? Because I mean, that is, I mean, I think I mentioned that before, but that is part of the route.
This is one of the biggest strategy decisions for the company. This is kind of like going back to the Model T.
Yeah.
And what's exciting about the project is that we can put, driver safety technology in the vehicle now to bring your insurance costs down. And we could even design the vehicle to be physically upgradable over time, like like an Airbus or a Boeing fuselage, because, it would make sense to do that. So it's a very exciting project, but I think we're approaching it with a lot of humility, but because it's Ford and the Model T and everything, but also because we want to think about it better than everyone else for the customer so that we bring something new to the party. We don't want to just make another generic, affordable EV because I think there's going to be plenty of those.
Yeah.
But what is Ford really going to do differently, bring to the party for customers that are different in that space? And I think we're deeply into answering that question now.
So allow me to interpret what I think I just saw. Robert, who must not quite have understood Ford mentioning commodity, not going there, asks Jim, hey Jim, so are you going to go for a mass market vehicle, an affordable vehicle or not? Jim then starts doing some mental gymnastics, not quite answering the question, and then basically tacitly admits, well, we can't really compete with Tesla on price, so we're trying to figure out now, how can we sell vehicles to customers if they're not going to be cost competitive? We're trying to answer that question now. It's real f***ing hard. Hence, we don't actually have an answer yet, but we're trying to think about one.
One of the things that I see as we now know pretty much the first 3 shippable software to the car, kind of like your iPhone in '08, where you're doing email and listening to music for the first time on your phone. We kind of know what the first 3 software. We think that the affordable vehicles will be a really difficult interior experience because of all the information. It's going to be really intimidating. So customizing the digital aspect of the vehicle is going to be, we think, a real difference maker. And we think basically that the car will be very difficult to make money on it.
Hold up. Did you hear what he just said? I mean, it's true, but he just said it out loud, which is stunning. Jim Farley, Ford CEO, has just admitted that it will be very difficult for them to make money on the hardware. We cannot possibly catch up to Tesla in terms of prices, so we're not going to try. Now we're trying to figure out how can we make money selling cars that we don't make money selling. It'll have to be through software, but we're an automotive company and we don't really know how to make software. So, we're trying to figure out how to stay in business right now. Thanks for asking that question, Robert. How awkward of you. I mean, it's true. Farley's just basically said, we can't make money on these cars. We're f***ed because of Tesla. I mean, what do we do? It's going to have to be through software. The irony, of course, is Ford's likely to end up licensing software from Tesla.
Just put business hat on for a second. The Toyotas, the very high volume brands, let's say they struggle in electric.
What a fun little hypothetical scenario here from Jim Farley, who, interestingly, chose to name a company explicitly, Toyota, when hypothetically describing what if these companies can't really survive the EV transition, can't make money on these cars. What happens then if Toyota goes bankrupt? By the way, spoiler alert, they will this decade. You can count on it. Rest in peace, the Japanese economy. Pay close attention to what Jim's about to say, because I think this is actually part of Ford's longer term strategy to clean up Toyota's scraps as the company collapses and then goes out of business.
This is a chance for a medium-sized company like Ford globally to get back into segments that we left a long time ago.
There we have it. Of course, we have to read between the lines a little bit here, but I know Toyota's going bankrupt. Jim knows Toyota's going bankrupt, and maybe Ford, part of their strategy in the future is to enter some of the segments that are now vacant or fairly vacant due to Toyota's collapse. After all, Toyota last year sold around 10 million vehicles. At the end of this decade, Toyota won't be in business, and therefore there'll be a 10 million unit per year gap in the automotive market. Someone's got to fill. Spoiler alert, Tesla's going to take the lion's share, but hey, maybe Ford can start competing in some of the segments that Tesla's not going to go after. Some really low volume vehicles, maybe the 500,000 per year type of scenario.
We're just finishing the Fiesta production because we're going to the MEB plant in Cologne. So, I mean, the Fiesta, right? I mean, that's like nothing more British than a Ford Fiesta.
Yeah.
But there's so much competition from BMW and Volkswagen in the ICE world. So in the EV world, though, it's an open playing field. So we can go back into segments, but we have to bring our A game and bring something different, like we did in '76 when we launched the Fiesta in Europe. So I think it's a chance to really grow. The F-150 Lightning was a complete pariah inside the company. Like, most people were like, why are we doing that? That's a really stupid project. And we had a group we called Team Edison because of Mr. Ford's friendship with Thomas Edison. We
Right.
created, and they had to actually leave the company. We put them in downtown Detroit in a separate building, and they
Wow.
came up with that concept of the vehicle. And they happened to report to me, and I watched the company kind of, push against them, like literally try to kill the project.
This is a recurring theme. You think internal politics ain't a thing at internal combustion engine manufacturers? Think again. Same story, just about everywhere. How dare you suggest something different? Let's try and kill the project. Tesla's lead vehicle designer, Franz von Holzhausen, talked about a similar experience at an automotive manufacturer he previously worked at on a project. You'd think everyone would be on the same page, on the same team, right? If you're working at a company, you want the company to be successful? Apparently not. Yet another pair of cement shoes working against legacy automotive manufacturers.
And it was a small group, like most good things in life. It was a small group in a very small building fighting for this idea. They continued to engineer it. I think the first range estimate for the Lightning was 100 miles. We got it to 325. Right. And like every week they come into my office, Jim, I think we got another 17 miles. and over the course of 3 years, we engineered this vehicle kind of against all the odds. And I guess it just proves, even in especially in big companies, good things are done in like janitor closets and, challenger projects. Because that's what that was. It was not the mainstream company. It was a couple of people who fought for their ideas, and thank God for them.
Another clue, another breadcrumb to follow. Very likely that Ford will spin out their EV business and let the internal combustion engine business sink to the bottom of the ocean. Got to give a lot of credit to Jim Farley here. By the way, even more credit to Robert and the Fully Charged podcast for getting this interview and getting these comments out of Jim. Brutal honesty. We do need to read between the lines a little bit, but the UAW has Ford by the fucking nuts. Many within Ford don't want electric vehicles to succeed. Ford knows there's zero chance of ever catching up to Tesla in terms of cost, so they're not even going to try. Jim Farley is also aware of multiple competitors, who we won't name by name, but there ain't that many of them, who are absolutely doomed to fail because they've still yet to realize they need to vertically integrate everything and be writing their own software. On that topic, software, it turns out it's actually a little bit difficult, especially for an automotive company to learn how to write. Seems pretty clear Jim Farley also expects Toyota to go bankrupt later this decade, or in the best case scenario, be a shadow of their former selves, and Ford will be ready there to clean up some of Toyota's scraps. And Jim admitting out loud, Ford hasn't really figured out how they're going to stay in business at this point in time because they can't compete on costs, but they're really trying hard to answer that question now. Here's how to do it, Jim. License software from Tesla, license technology from Tesla, just use the Ford brand, continue to sell vehicles to loyal buyers, and that's how you differentiate your products. Expect razor-thin margins, but at least you'll still be in business, as opposed to most of the other legacy automotive companies. Good luck, Ford. I'm rooting for you. Athletic Greens AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. Athletic Greens AG1 is an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to athleticgreens.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. Certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point and something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy, wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1 is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, this is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, Snake Oil Salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. And remember, there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. There's nothing to lose here. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to athleticgreens.com/SMR or click the link in the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links in the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon. And don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.